Hey, I'm Dan Pascone, CEO of Tailored Wealth and host of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where every conversation is built around one idea. Your money is a tool to design and live your version of a rich life. So if you're a high earner in a go-to-market or executive role, your next career move isn't just a career decision. It's a financial planning decision. How you negotiate your comp package, whether your 401k offers a mega backdoor Roth, whether equity you're being dangled is realistic or just a pipe dream. These are the decisions that quietly shape how fast you reach your work optional potential living. So today I'm joined by Anthony Herrera, who's president of Pursuit Sales Solutions, a recruiting firm that specializes in matching elite go-to-market talent with growing companies across the country. We're digging into what the GTM job market actually looks like right now, how to negotiate a comp package that actually reflects your full financial picture, and what smart leaders think about before they take on the next role. Before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite platform. And if the show is adding value for you, I'd really appreciate a quick review. It goes a long way. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
Brought to you by Tailored Wealth, helping business leaders live their version of a rich life.
Welcome to another edition of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where we cut through the financial noise and help business leaders to make smart, confident money decisions. All right, Anthony, welcome to the Making Sense of Your Money podcast. Excited to chat with you today, my friend.
Hey, Dan, looking forward to it. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, good. Me too. So you and I chatted previously, and I have the opportunity to speak and network with a number of different staffing, recruiting agencies, and folks that just help people either find jobs or move on and get coached within their career. So we've got a number of folks that fit those types of services on the podcast. But I'm interested to chat with you today about sort of how you see career change and job change impacting like the broader life and financial plan and all the stuff that goes into that. So thanks for coming on. And if you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you're at today.
Yeah, Dan, I love being here. And I'm very passionate about it because I love the idea of a rich life and designing a life that you want. And so I'm excited to come and talk about that. So a little bit about me, right? So for the last 20 years of my career, I've been involved in either recruiting, developing, or retaining top talent for organizations. And I've kind of done that across multiple types of organizations, nonprofits, publicly traded companies, startup companies. And right now I'm at Pursuit. And Pursuit is a recruiting firm that specializes in go-to-market talent, right? So if I could say it in one sentence, what do? We match elite go-to-market talent with growing and scaling companies, and we do that nationwide.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So I'm a former go-to-market leader, which is how you and I got connected. And, we obviously work with a number of go-to-market leaders in our practice. So tell us a little bit about like the scope of the different roles that you ultimately hire for or match talent with the employer for, Anthony.
Yeah, so it's pretty fascinating. So we've been doing this for a little over a decade now, and we kind of specialize strictly in the go-to-market function for growth companies. And I'm going to use that pretty broadly because when we say growth stage company, we already we think venture backed technology companies, and that's a good size of our business, and we do that. But we also do it in what I would say medical sales and general B2B as we classify, which
Sure.
could be manufacturing. But we'll do anything from the entry level sales rep all the way up to the chief revenue officer or the chief marketing officer. So anything that falls under the go to market function and for some clients we're helping them get their first founding sales rep, or for an organization we may be helping them identify their head of sales, their first head of sales, or we're helping them revamp and rebuild an entire sales organization.
Very cool. And I've been at pretty much all phases of those throughout my career and have worked with a number of folks in those different phases. So this will be an interesting and a fun conversation. So tell our audience, those that maybe don't know, what's unique about hiring for GTM style roles?
Well, it's what's unique about it is it takes each situation's unique, right? Meaning every time a client comes to us, A lot of times they think, hey, GTM, at the end of the day, it's what we need talent that drives revenue. But one size doesn't fit all. You can grow in your career and be very specialized in early stage building from the ground up. There's no infrastructure, there's no playbooks, and you can be very successful in having a career like that. And that's your skill set. But on the flip side, you can take somebody who is great at taking something that's maybe established and squeezing more juice out of it, right? And then you can have somebody who can come in and that's something established. It's gone the wrong direction. It's gone backwards, and they can come back and rebuild it. And those are like three different distinct profiles. And that's what makes this work very interesting and exciting, is because clients sometimes need to know what are they, what category do they
Yeah.
fall in, and what type of person do we need to come and build that out for us.
And I'm fascinated by that because I completely agree with you. The skill set and even the mindset and the style of someone that can kind of come in and roll up their sleeves when there is no structure is very different from someone that is great at executing the playbook, if you will, right? How do you help candidates find out, like, and identify what's the right fit for them? Because I imagine most of the people that are either in the job hunt, whether they're employed already or they're not, are just looking for the right opportunity and maybe looking for the firm that has the best benefits and the best compensation package and is best for their family and their life. But how do you help them to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what situation would they be best set up for success in?
Yeah, a couple of ways. And I'll start off this full transparency at Pursuit. We're unique. The way we approach our searches, we start each search as a unique search. So we don't sit on a bench of candidates, right? We're not saying, hey, let's go talk to as many candidates, see what works with them, and then go find the roles. We actually work the opposite direction, right? We work with our clients, and then we launch a search and go find that talent. And so, but over the time and in my career, what I've learned is, hey, helping individuals, helping elite talent identify which niche they fit in best and to go after it. Because sometimes people get into the sales and they think, I'm a great salesperson. And they think of that as a generalist, and they're not, right? Like I said, you can either be a builder, a scaler. Nobody wants to be a sustainer, right? No organization just wants to sustain and want to grow, or somebody who's going to not rock the ship, but they're going to continue the growth. And so finding out what are those skill sets. So at Pursuit, we do a couple things. We do assessments. Like one assessments we lean on heavily is the predictive index, right? So it talks about your behaviors and how you're going to operate. And that's so critical. A lot of us go through life and we never value or even think about taking those assessments, which really do tell you which situations you're going to thrive in best. And then second, owning it, right? With so many times I talk to candidates that just get discouraged because they were very successful in their previous opportunity, which may have been kind of in an established organization with established playbook, and they find themselves in an attractive comp package and an attractive role because it's a building role now, and they don't even know what to do. And the pressure's on, and they crumble, and they think, well, maybe I'm just not cut out for sales or this GTM function anymore. And that's not the case. And that's so important that we kind of really unpack what's your experience? Why were you successful? What was the context of the environment you were in? So that we can then say, okay, here's your next step. Here's your next opportunity to continue to grow your skills or find you an environment that you're going to thrive in.
Yeah, that's such good advice, and I think a lot of times that gets overlooked. So I'm in a go to market network called Pavilion, and the CEO, Sam Jacobs, I hear him quote the average term of a sales leader. I think it's typically the CRO or the VP of sales function, but and he's always quoting, and the number changes a little bit, but it's always somewhere in and around 2 years, right? And so I'm always fascinated by that. Being a former CRO myself, I know that those jobs have high degrees of turnover. So if you were advising the sales rep or the sales leader or the marketing rep or the marketing leader, what would be your advice to not be a part of that study moving forward and find the role for you that's got more sustainability?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question because it is right, and it's probably right. It's between that 2 to 3 year mark. There's so much pressure on those CRO level roles. And what you want to do is really understand what is the environment you're going into, right? Because again, it's going back to the unique situation. Are you going into a place where they have no infrastructure, right? If it's an early stage company and it's all the sales have been driven by the founder, they probably don't have a playbook. They don't even have a CRM. It's been all relationship driven sales of a network of the founder, CEO,
Sure.
or maybe the VC firm that's been backing it.
Yep.
So in some respects, they don't even have a proven model. Right. And so if you're going into that, you need to know that, hey, I'm building from scratch. There's high risk, potential for high upside, but there's more risk. And so you're going in and say you want to manage that risk. I'm not saying avoid those opportunities because you just don't know until you get into them. But what you want to do is say, okay, how do you negotiate your comp package? Right. If you have, an equity earnout that doesn't kick in for 3 to 5 years, but yet we are know that it's the average tenure is 2 to 3 years. That's not part of your comp package.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
pipe dream,
Right.
and I think people are starting to realize that and saying, hey, because firms are dangling these equity packages with a 5-year earnout or something. It's like, that's not realistic. And so how can you move that more into the base, or how can you move that more into bonus or a different comp kind of incentive structure, because that's going to help you kind of get some ground on that. But then second is really understand the environment you're going in. So as like I said, is it just been founder driven sales? If it's not, if it's been like we work with some companies that are established companies, have been around 50 plus years, but they've never built out a sales team.
Mhm.
Right. And so if you're coming into that environment, uh, how have their sales been coming? Right? Has it just been referrals and they've never done an outbound motion? And so really understanding, is this organization positioned to have an outbound motion? Right. Or all of a sudden we hear companies say, yeah, we want, we're hearing all this great information about marketing and email campaigns. And it's like, does that work in your industry? Does your customer read emails? Right. And if
Yeah,
not, you might be setting yourself to go into something that it's just never going to take off.
sure, sure. I want to come back to comp, but first, I'm curious if you're seeing this, that more and more specifically go to market leaders are starting to identify, and many of them have spent earlier phases of their career trying to figure this out. So there's a question in there around how do you figure it out other than maybe just getting the experience. But I'm seeing more and more of them are saying, hey, I've found that I like the go to market leadership role. Let's call it that because we deal with a lot of those. I had a client yesterday who said this to me. And I realized that this stage company or this phase company or this type of backed company, whatever it may be, is where I'm best suited, right? It's the environment I operate in best. It's where I'm happiest. It's where the people are most aligned with how I think and how I want to operate. And I love it when I hear that from folks because it just like, it's so much greater career, job, and life satisfaction, which again goes back to the mission that we talked about earlier. But in your world, how do people figure that out without just taking a bunch of jobs?
Yeah, yeah, that is a great question, and it really comes in a couple of different pathways, right? One is it's on the job training, right? To your point, is like you take a couple of jobs, right? And if you identify that you want to go into the go to market world and function early in your career, you're going to be the best set up to succeed because over a 10-year period, you can have 2 or 3 opportunities, and maybe in a couple of different those stages that you talked about where the organization is. That's the most ideal, right? Is you're learning and you kind of get a sense which stage is going to be best. Do you want to be, venture backed, private equity backed, family owned only? Like what is that? The second option is talking to a lot of people. I'm so fascinated. Just this last week, I talked to 3 go-to-market leaders, and they said, "Hey, nobody ever calls me, and when I get on an interview, the recruiter doesn't talk to me that long." And I said, "Hold on one second." And I go pull up their LinkedIn profile, and it's like they have no voice, they really don't have an established profile. And so what it
Yeah.
tells me is like, your head has been in the sand, and that's great. Maybe you're a great builder, but nobody knows. And today, more than ever, when you're going out to the job search, people are looking up your profile. They say, who is this person? Do they have a voice? Do they have a thought leadership? What have they done? What value can they bring? And if you can't display it, the public profile is so big. And so I say that is that the way you kind of start to figure out which one of these niches you want to be in, you got to start talking to a lot of people, right? You can't just put your head down and just stay inside your organization and be a builder. And a lot of salespeople, because of that, we're naturally wired that way. Even though they say, oh, salespeople are great networkers and connectors. I'm not so sure. I think a lot of times we're more great at systems and
Right.
execution. And we forget to say, hey, if it's not directly tied to us making a sale, we also need to go out and talk to other people. What's going on in different industries? Because that's when we're going to learn the greatest. And so I think those 2 pathways are most common, right? You're either on the job training or you're out there connecting. And you mentioned Pavilion, right? That's a great network where you're around peer, like minded peers that are across different sectors and industries.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well said. All right. So let's come back to comp because obviously this is a show about money. What are you seeing right now with respect to compensation trends in go-to-market roles?
Yeah, and I'm going to say something because I think it's fascinating. What we're seeing is, if you would ask us, and even internally our organization, we've always talked about being sales and marketing. But when you deal in the tech sector, GTM resonates, right? And what we're starting to see that is now bleeding over into these other industries, right? In general, B2B or, other industries outside of tech, where they're starting to use the term GTM, right? Go
Interesting.
to market, right? And
Yeah.
they're starting to build out those different areas. And so the trend is you're seeing across the nation. I can talk about, what we saw over 1,400 searches in 2025 across the nation and all of these industries that I just mentioned. Medical strong and it's kind of stable, which we would understand that, right? Even post COVID, aging population, that is going to be strong and it's probably not going to let up. And the reason I bring that up is there's a war for talent and elite GTM talent. And they're starting to experiment and say, hey, we're open to hiring somebody outside of our industry. Our preference is somebody in our industry and our experience, but we're open to that. But what's going on in medical is they got the money. And
Yeah.
so they're willing to pay a premium and they're a
So the
little bit
medical
more.
firm might go, sorry, the medical firm might go hire the tech revenue leader because they like their experience, they like the talent, and they feel like they can teach the medical. And it's like we've got enough budget that we can take a little bit of risk on this one.
And in this AI era now, they're saying, hey, we want a leader that is more comfortable with tech
Sure,
because we're trying to implement tech and we're trying to
sure.
infuse AI in our processing system. And so that is a trend. And the trend is, hey, they got the money and they're pretty stable. And so you're not just, if you're a tech organization now, they're just not competing for talent within your industry. You got other industries now starting to poach. So the other industry, I feel like general B2B, there's a big push on, these skilled trades and, manufacturing, blue collar, the gritty stuff. They're getting rolled up by private equity firms. The private equity firms are savvy, right? They know the type of talent they need to come and infuse into these organizations, and they're willing to push the owners to say, "Hey, we need to go get this type of GTM leader and infuse it." Right? I'm not saying it's a successful playbook. We need some more time to see how this plays out, but they're doing that, right? So there's competition on that. And so then in the tech world, right, we talk about AI, SaaS, technology platforms, they're still aggressive, right? The comp package are still aggressive, and there's still a lot of growth VC firms out there putting money back into these organizations, and they're going after talent, and they know they got to win on the base, they got to win on the bonus, and they got to win on the equity side if they want to get this great talent. And so it's still, if I was graduating college today or thinking about not even going to college, I would jump into sales today, hands down.
I've always said that. I've said that for a number of years because even if like your heart and your mindset is not to be in sales long term. It ain't for everybody, that's for sure. But it's a great way to learn all aspects of the business, and you're forced to develop skills that you can use really in any function. I completely agree with that. All right, so you mentioned like sort of the three core components of a comp package: base, bonus, and equity. Are you seeing any trends that firms, and maybe it's industry specific, maybe it's not, but that they're doing with any of those components? Are you seeing it being weighted any differently in 2026 than it was in previous years? Give me your thoughts around that.
Nothing. I'm not gonna be honest. I haven't seen anything just jump out on trends. There's certain organizations that are experimenting with things. They may say, "Hey, we're going to bring this individual in, and instead of giving them this huge inflated base, we're going to give them a bonus as they have more success in their first year."
Yeah, love that.
Right? And then in year two, they may absorb it into the base once they see the traction. Right? That you're seeing stuff like that. So there's
Yeah, for sure.
experimentation going on. But I don't see this overarching theme or trend that's really transforming it. And I think part of it is just because there is still the supply of elite go to market talent is just not matching the demand. And so until that kind of evens out, I think you're just going to see everybody still being competitive.
Above and beyond the base bonus equity, from a candidate perspective, what are other components of a job and maybe even of an overall benefits package that you would advise that job seekers consider and weigh, above and beyond kind of the core stuff that everybody's, accustomed to thinking about?
Yeah, I think, some unique, and it spans, right? Some are looking at development, right? Even for the individual, even for the sales leader, right? They're saying, hey, do I have my own development bucket, right? Can I get,
Love that.
what do you call it? Stipends to pay for my pavilion membership?
Yeah, right.
Can I go to development conferences that are outside of just the conferences necessary for my team to operate so that I could grow as a sales leader? So that's becoming more and more common, right? You're starting to see, whether it's $10,000, $20,000 a year that organizations are putting in that. Second, this whole remote hybrid, they're obviously, we were all remote. Now there's like, get back to the office, and we're landing in the middle of hybrid. And the interesting thing is, you know, that's still up for some of these leadership roles. That's still up for negotiation.
Got it.
There's some, and it's industry specific. I think on the tech side, you're still seeing a lot of it being remote. When you start getting into the B2B and some of the medical, they want you in the territory that they're going to, right? And there is this trend getting back to that. And so where they're still up for negotiation is like, hey, can I stay in my hometown or where I'm at, but I'm in the region? That's probably going to be up for negotiation. The third is you're seeing some benefits being pulled back, right? You're seeing
Okay.
a lot of that's kind of following the big corporate, right? Where you see maternity leave getting pulled back, unlimited PTO. And so some of these smaller organizations, because of the competition to get great talent, they're willing to kind of keep it or at least allow you to negotiate it back. Right. And so those are big. And then I think the last one I think is, and I think this is a negotiation package, and you want to know this on the front end. And people say, well, that's just part of organizational structure. But if you're coming in as a leader, you need to be kind of getting in writing, what is your runway for you to hire talent, right? Because if you're going to be charged to, and you want the CFO or the owner or the founder or CEO to have given you that a package and in writing to say, here's what we're committing to you for at least the next 2 years. We are giving you the green light. I see so many heads of sales and people take opportunities and they're asked to come build, but they have no green light on the front end of what they can hire and ramp up, and they get into the role, and it's like all of a sudden they move from being a head of sales to an individual contributor because they're not allowed to ramp and hire.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'll add to that. I'm gonna throw in a couple of pieces that I think folks should be taking a look at above and beyond just comp is retirement package and retirement benefits. So Anthony, we deal with a lot of folks that are in go to market and other corporate leadership roles, a lot of go to market that are saying, I have X amount more years that I want to do this for, right? And then I want to transition into what I call hybrid retirement, which is some form of running your own business or doing consulting work or fractional or board seats, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different ways you can slice that. But they may need to make the next job be like the one that gets them there, or maybe they've got two more stops left, whatever the case may be. And listen, the equity component is always a bit of a lottery ticket in that discussion, right? So depending on how your equity is structured, if you're with a bigger firm and they're giving you RSUs, well, that's like a little bit easier to. If you're with a smaller private firm and you're getting options, that is very much a lottery ticket, right? There's a lot of strategy that goes behind it, but it's tough to really count on that component. But a couple of things you can count on would be 401k and 401k match, right? Those are a couple of things that I always like folks to look at. Here's the one, I'm curious if you come across this at all, that I always ask every new prospective client to check with their firm, or if they're going through a job change, which oftentimes they are, to see if the firm offers this. And I'm finding more and more firms are offering it. So there's three components to the 401k typically, or there can be three. There's a traditional 401k, which is your pre-tax money. There's the Roth 401k, and most firms have that today. But the third component is the after-tax bucket, and then the ability to auto convert from after-tax to Roth, which is the concept that we refer to as the mega backdoor Roth, right? And specifically for a leader that is in sort of their prime earning years, has excess cash flow coming in to pay for their expenses, and is really, really geared toward a tax efficient retirement. If your company offers that, it can be a real game changer. And if you're able to put that strategy to work for you for, call it, 5 to 10 years, what you're going to be doing is building up a Roth bucket that in retirement you it grows tax free, and then you can access it tax free in retirement. So you get a lot more flexibility with how you're able to draw from your savings when you don't have a stable income coming in, right? So that would be one component that I would advise folks to ask about. And I'm finding this, Anthony, the more than I do, for a while, it was the big companies with the big 401k platforms that were offering it, right? Like the Fortune 500s that have Fidelity as their 401k platform were offering this 5 years ago. More and more firms are offering it at different levels. And what I would always advise, even if your firm doesn't offer it now, ask about it and get other people to ask about it, because if they do, there's a good likelihood that the firm might look to enable that function with their back office 401k provider, because it's being viewed as a perk.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's one of the best accelerators for designing your life is taking advantage of these 401k plans, right? So I always think about it as like, I feel like it's almost table stakes now is that if you're going to an organization, they should have some type of retirement plan. And if you want to make sure, and most of them do now have a Roth, portion of that. That is so critical because that does give you the flexibility, right? If you can max that and contribute to that consistently, if you find yourself in your 40s and you're in a mini, I'm going to call it a mini retirement where
Yeah.
maybe you're unemployed, but you can access that capital, the contributions you make. That's huge, right? That allows you to stay afloat, allows you to continue to grow. And so I think that is it's table stakes. I would expect you shouldn't take an offer if that's not there. If not, you need to have some other embedded opportunities in your contract where maybe they're doing a lump sum contribution to your own Roth setup outside of the employer one, because that's really important. And I think it's the biggest accelerator. And I'll be honest, Dan, I know, at least I felt like the discussion here, we're talking about somebody more senior in their career.
Yeah.
I think this is so much more important earlier in your career, especially when you come into sales. I mean, you're getting those lump checks and commission checks. Maxing out those retirements will allow you, when you get to 30, 40 years old, you're going to have way more flexibility, and allow you to take more risks as well.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. And then, one other one that I'm curious to see how, if you're seeing this more and more, we are seeing it. In fact, I did a video about this concept a couple of weeks ago, but this is more for the leader that's maybe got the one stop left, that's a little bit more seasoned in their career, probably in their 40s and 50s. But deferred compensation, right? There can be some benefits to both the company and to the employee by utilizing deferred compensation, especially if you have a pretty good idea of like what your exit from corporate looks like and when it looks like, because deferring comp to a time frame when your income is lower is really, really unique from a tax perspective and has a bunch of other benefits from a financial planning perspective. So are you seeing deferred comp being worked into offers with like the CRO, the CMO, the VP level function?
I'm not seeing that. Well, like I said, I think what I am seeing a trend, right? We see with talent in the tech sector, it is leaning more younger,
Okay. Yep.
right? You're not seeing late 40s and 50-year-olds getting these CRO positions, right? You're seeing 30-year-olds, right? So sometimes that's not even on their mind, right? Because they're not
Right.
even thinking about that exit yet.
Yep.
Now you switch over to these more established industries, you are seeing that, right? You're seeing that, hey, they want the seniority, when they want the experience, these organizations. So they're getting these 40 plus year olds, these 50 plus year olds. And so that is becoming a factor. And they know it is part of the negotiation and an opportunity for them to secure somebody. And you're also seeing what I want to call like a phase out, right? You not only have one component is the deferred compensation, the other component is, hey, we want to sign you on a contract for these 3 years, and then we'd like to phase you into more of a fractional role, an advisory role,
Interesting.
and
Interesting.
start to draw down your salary, right? And those are unique. That's like, it's not like this, hey, this is a theme and a trend going on widely, but you see that as a part of a negotiating tool, right? So I always tell people like, hey, that is an option, you know,
It's a
and
good thing to
because
think
these
about. If that maps out with like, to your point, to the point we made earlier, like your life goals, it's an interesting option if the employer doesn't present it, for the employee to potentially consider that. Because I can see a lot of cases where that might be really beneficial to. I always look for win-wins. Like, how can we make it so that both sides win, right? And if your company is at a place where they just need somebody to like get the ship moving, establish a playbook, put the baseline in place, and then maybe allow some other talent to take over, and then they're sort of advising on a fractional basis. That could be really unique and beneficial on both sides. So that's an interesting concept for people to think about.
And
If
it's a negotiating tool, Dan. Like
yeah,
I
sure,
love this for senior employees because if you, like you said, if you know, hey, I have one more stop, and in that stop, I'm more defined. I got 5 more years.
yeah,
And you go to an organization and you say, look, I can give you 5 years, 3 of them full time. I'll go build this out or rebuild it for you.
yeah,
And then I will train and develop on a fractional or advisory capacity for 2 more years. So the
cool
organization, talk about the
concept.
win-win, it's succession planning. And
Yeah,
that's where more organizations are starting to think about that idea of succession planning,
yeah,
especially the more traditional industries, because they're thinking, okay, we don't want to sign this person for 3 years and get a big win. And then 3 years they're gone and we're back to the start again and the ship's having
yeah,
to get rebuilt. And so that is something I tell senior talent to say, don't be shy to put that on the table. The organization, if they're not thinking about it, it's going to resonate with.
yeah. Very cool, very cool. That's a great concept. I'm going to bring that up more often to my clients. I love that you share that. All right, Anthony, let's shift gears a little bit. You're officially entering the lightning round. All right. So the concept of the lightning round is simple. Quick, hard hitting questions, and then just give us whatever response is the kind of the first one that comes to your mind. You
You
ready?
got it. I love it. Let's
All right,
go.
let's
Yep.
get to know you a little bit more. One meal for the rest of your life. What is it?
I love Tex-Mex. So
Okay,
anything
good.
with
Me too.
fajita steak, fajitas.
I love me too, actually. What's one tool or technology other than your computer or your phone you can't live without?
Well, that's a great one. I think right now I'm going to say Chat GPT.
Okay,
I feel like
sounds
I'm using it almost in every aspect of my life.
yeah, I get that. I get that. Do you have a habit or a hack that has contributed and had an impact on your success?
Yes. Working out 5 to 6 days a week.
Me
I
too.
feel like
Yeah.
that keeps me level
What do you
headed
do?
and,
What's your
I
workout
peak
routine?
performance.
What's your workout routine look like?
It's changed. Early in my 20s, I lifted every day and I cycled. I was a cycling instructor too.
Okay, cool, cool.
Now I've toned down the hard intensity cardio. And I do more walking and I lift 4 days a week.
Good for you. Good for you. Um, your bucket list. Can you give us one item that you've already scratched off of it, and one item that's still on there? Your bucket list.
Yeah, big bucket list for me was, I got a young family now. I started later having kids. And so we're at the age now we can start traveling with them. And so last year I took my son on a mission trip to Uganda. And that was just
Nice.
something I wanted. I have experience of that in my life. And so getting that to get my kids out of the country, out of our comfort zone
Sure.
and serving others really helps them grow.
I love it, man. That's great. Last one. One piece of advice you would give your younger self. What would it be?
Keep saying yes. I think when I look at my career and growth is I've said yes to opportunities that, sometimes in the moment you're scratching your head, like, why would I do this? And it's opened up doors and opportunities for network friends and even wealth building. I tell people like,
Yeah.
hey, I took this opportunity. I met this person and I had the opportunity to invest in this deal now. And so I say yes. So many times I get the opportunity to talk to so many young talent, young professionals, and it's paralysis by analysis, right? They just sit and they just don't know what direction to take. And I'm like, hey, just say yes. Just go do it.
I love it. Really good. Really good. And then, Anthony, if our listeners want to find you, potentially collaborate you, work with Pursuit, where can they find you?
Yeah, I love it. So you can find me online, right? So I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can look me up, Anthony Herrera. I'm the president of Pursuit Sales Solutions. We got a great company page. We're always, like I said, we work with so many companies, so many opportunities across the country. You can find Pursuit Sales Solutions on LinkedIn as well, or find us on our website or Instagram. We're on all the social platforms, and so we love helping people. And like I said, our mission is to match elite talent with elite companies.
Very cool. Well, we've got a lot of business and company leaders and a lot of GTM talent that subscribe to this show. So that's great. Anthony, thanks for joining us, man. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it. Look forward to connecting soon.
You bet. You bet. That's it for the episode. You can find our podcast along with our newsletter and YouTube channel all for free at makingsenseofyourmoney.com. And as always, don't forget to live your version of a rich life.